When it comes to earning money in Gran Turismo 7, 2 of the 4 big money races have dynamic weather. So you're going to need to choose some wet weather. So you're going to need to choose either some wet weather or intermediate tyres to use when it starts to rain, but the game doesn't really tell you which tyres to use and when to use them. Now, a lot of the talk and recommendation from everybody, and also myself, has been to always choose intermediate tyres because they seem to work the best in the most situations, but it got me thinking, why don't I just test all the tyres and see which one's best? So I did exactly that. I set up a custom race of 1 lap. I set it to consistent weather for each type of weather, tested every single tyre. Tyre wear was set to ×10 to amplify what the tyre wear and tyre usage would be, to really see what the difference is between all the tyres, and we're going to run through the side-by-side laps right now. So the first back-to-back test is going to be cloudy with rain. This is going to be in the middle segment of the 3-segment wetness meter in Gran Turismo 7. I'm using my default settings and I'm going to put the tyres on. Well, first of all, we're going to run racing medium tyres, intermediate tyres and wet weather tyres. 3-way side-by-side comparison. Top left of your screen is the full wet weathers. Top right of the screen is intermediate, bottom right is racing medium tyres. So we're in the middle third of the wetness meter. Through turn 1 it's close, but already you can see racing medium tyres are starting to suffer. So for sure the racing medium tyres are not the optimum tyres to be when the wetness meter is in the middle segments of the wetness meter. So our main focus is going to be the difference between heavy wet tyres and intermediate tyres. We will of course see how far behind those racing medium tyres finish at the end of the lap. But right now I'm going to concentrate side by side on intermediate versus wet weather tyres, and already we're ahead with the intermediate tyres. So in the middle third of the wetness meter, intermediate tyres seem to be the tyres that are performing the best. Now this is a Ferrari 458, it's a Group 3 car, it's set with BOP across all of these tests, so it's 100% fair. Braking into the hairpin now, and again you can see we're ahead with the intermediate tyres. The wet weather tyres seem perfectly fine to drive. They just were a fraction slower really. In these weather conditions the racing medium tyres were proving to be a little bit challenging to drive. The rear would slide a little bit, would go deep on the brakes a little bit. So yeah, the racing medium tyres definitely were harder to drive, but between intermediate and wet weather tyres the difficulty to get the car on the track was almost the same. It's just the intermediate tyre just had more grip, just allowed you to have more confidence to carry that corner speed and get the faster lap time. So now into the big braking zone for the very slow bus stop chicane, and you can see we're quite a way ahead with the intermediate tyres. So bouncing over the curbs, I've tried to run all of these laps as consistently and repeatable as possible. And you see now just going over the curbs on the racing medium tyres with a lot of swads coming out of the corner there. So it's difficult to drive with racing medium tyres when you're in the middle segment of the track. To the line now, intermediate tyres is going to get it. Very closely followed by wet weather tyres, and now quite some distance behind the racing medium tyres are going to finish. Lap time wise, we're looking at 2 minutes 2 for the intermediates, 2 minutes 3 for the wet weather tyres, and eventually 2 minutes 9 seconds for the racing medium tyres. So I think it goes without saying that that result wasn't unexpected. I think in the medium kind of segment of the wetness meter, you expect the intermediate tyres to be the best, you expect the wet weather tyres to be a little bit slower, and you expect the dry racing medium tyres to be slower than them all. Okay, so let's throw some more rain into the mix. Cloudy with torrential rain. The wetness meter will be well into the final third, which is standing water on the track. There will be puddles. Again, exact same settings, preset weather, and we're going to run 3 laps side by side. Now, this is the kind of weather that you do get at Le Mans and you do get at Spa in the World Touring Car 800 and 700s. 100% wet weather. Rain coming down all the time, standing water all over the track, and already the racing medium tyres, it's impossible to drive in a straight line. When there is standing water on the track, dry weather, racing medium, any kind of compound of racing medium, soft or hard tyres, they do not work. It's almost impossible to drive the car. Now let's focus on wet weather tyres and intermediate tyres, and already the wet weather tyres are stretching ahead, but the intermediate tyres still drive okay. It's not like they are uncontrollable with standing water on the track. Now, it's pretty similar to drive between the both of them. I'd say it almost feels like the switch is flipped between the faster tyre, but the actual driving feel between both intermediate and wet weather tyres feels quite similar. Maybe from time to time we'll catch some standing water with the intermediate tyres, but it wasn't like I'd say that the difficulty was way harder when you're using intermediate tyres. Into the hairpin now, we're getting there first with the wet weather tyres on the brakes at the pretty much normal braking point, getting it to the apex with the intermediate tyres just about getting to the apex as well, so it doesn't seem too bad to drive. We just are lacking a bit of lap time performance through the Schumacher S, and both the wet weather cars still get a bit of a wobble on, so when there is standing water on the track you do need to pay extra attention because you can just make those small mistakes. Racing medium tyres, this is just a nightmare. I don't even think I'm going to get to the end of this race, but on both the wet weather tyres, the intermediate and the full heavy wet weather tyre is perfectly drivable. It's remarkable how much difference it makes, and if anybody's ever seen any real racing in real life, I've seen cars just spin off the track when they've had massive downpours, so it's not like Gran Turismo is unrealistically difficult to drive on dry tyres on very heavy wet tracks. Through the bus stop chicane now, and we're ahead with the wet weather tyres as you probably would expect. So heavy wet tyres work incredibly well when there is standing water on the track. Whenever that wetness meter goes into that final third in the dark blue, that normally refers to surface water, and that's when heavy wet tyres really come into their own. So we're across the line with both. I gave up with the racing medium tyres. What are the lap times? So 2 minutes 18 for the heavy wet tyre and 2 minutes 20 for the intermediate. So a 2-second difference in lap time. Okay, let's see what happens with a little bit less water on the track. So the default conditions is light drizzle. This is going to be just in the first third of the wetness meter. Again, same settings as always. We're going to run 2 laps side by side because quite clearly the heavy wet tyre is not going to be the fastest. So we're going to go intermediate versus the racing medium tyre. So here we go then. The wetness meter is not quite far off being into the second segment, but it is still in the lower third segment into turn 1. Both cars look pretty similar at the moment, guys. The racing medium tyres have got so much more grip. Look at the apex there on the brakes now to the third corner, and we are just really hugging that apex with the racing medium tyres. The intermediate tyres aren't working as well as you expect them to, even though there is wetness on the track. This was quite a big surprise for me because even though there is wetness on the track, even though there is rain coming down, as long as you're in that first third of the wetness meter, dry tyres are the best tyres to be on, and we've already pulled quite a significant margin over the intermediate tyres on the other car. Into the hairpin now, we're already just hugging the apex quite nicely with the racing medium tyres, getting on the gas really early, confidence on corner exit. Into the Schumacher S now with the racing medium tyres, carrying a lot of speed through there. Only a little lift was required, whereas we're almost over the curb with the intermediate tyres, so there is a severe lack of grip with the intermediate tyres. All over the track, the racing medium tyres have significant pace advantage over the intermediates. Again, running wide with the intermediates, trying to drive the car as I did with the racing medium tyres, but just feeling a complete lack of grip. Wobble on corner exit with the intermediate tyres as well. How we're going to do into the big braking zone for the bus stop chicane, and we can brake a little bit later than we would do for the other tyres and other tests with the racing medium tyres in the lower segment of the wetness meter. And again, got to be quite cautious through the bus stop chicane and exit with the intermediate tyres. We're already getting to the finish line with the racing medium tyres. So in these conditions, guys, dry tyres are the tyres to be on. Not only that, when you're in the first segment, tyre wear on the wet or intermediate tyres is really a significant amount. Look at that, guys. So lap time wise, 1:55 with the dry tyres versus 2 minutes with the intermediates. And look at the tyre wear. That is a huge amount of tyre wear in a race grinding for credits. That's going to cause you loads and loads of problems. So that got me thinking, the intermediate tyres should be better when the track's starting to dry out with regard to tyre wear, and yet they were almost completely destroyed after one lap. Now it is on times 10 tyre wear to amplify the difference, so I'm now going to test intermediate tyres, wet weather tyres and racing medium tyres on a completely dry track to see how the tyre wear plays out. So here we have it, S01 dry, cloudless and pleasant. Almost no clouds in the sky. That seems like a lovely day to me. As always guys, using the exact same settings as before, only changing the weather type, and I'm going to run the 3-way tyre shootout in the dry this time. Now I've got to say, when I come to drive this dry lap, it just made me feel really happy that the sun was out, the grip was there, we're all good to go. So there's actually no wetness in the track at all. Let's see how these 3 tyres fare in this shootout. So I think it's going to be quite obvious that the racing medium tyre is going to be the fastest, but the 2 main things I want to look at in this lap is what is the speed difference between wet and intermediate tyres on a dry track, and what is the tyre wear difference between wet and intermediate tyres on a dry track. And as you can see from the footage on screen guys, the racing medium tyres have so much grip and they're actually spanking the competition. So now it looks like the intermediate tyres fractionally have the advantage over the wet tyres, which you'd expect. It is good to see. It's good to see that they're simulated as you would expect them to be. But what we don't yet know is what is the tyre wear like when we get to the end of the lap. So already approaching the hairpin with the racing medium tyres and on the brakes through that corner there. And we're not actually that far behind with the intermediate or the wet weather tyres. So I think in the lower segments of the wetness meter right through to fully dry, I think that performance deficit still carries through. After driving all of the laps in the wet and finally fitting some racing medium tyres on a dry track, it felt fantastic guys. The grip was back there in this Group 3 458 Ferrari. So much fun to drive. Now we're looking at the intermediate versus the wet tyres, and we're probably like half a corner behind with the wet weather tyres. I wonder what the final lap time will be and how we're going to get the car stopped into the bus stop chicane. And we're looking like we're over the curbs nicely and aggressively in the racing medium tyres. A little bit of wobble on corner exit over there through in the intermediate tyres, following through in the wet weather tyres, and we've got one more corner to go. Looking at the tyre wear for intermediate versus wet, and wets do seem a little bit more used than the intermediates, but they're holding on a lot better than I thought they would do. Across the line for a 1:54 for the racing medium tyres, so just 1 second faster in the completely dry conditions. 1:59 for the intermediates and 2:02 for the wet weather tyres. But look at the tyre wear. It seems any of the wet weather tyres are not very good at all in dry weather, but the difference between full heavy wets and intermediates are a lot less than I thought there would be. I thought the heavy wet tyres would absolutely destroy themselves in half a lap, but they just about hang on. So what do you make of those results then guys? Let me know what you've thought in the comments below. I think it's reasonably clear which tyres we should be on, and that is very often the intermediate tyres. They have better tyre wear when the track goes dry, which is a good thing. They aren't too bad when the track is incredibly wet, which is a good thing. However, don't discount the wet weather tyres. If you know there is some really incredible rain coming in, you can see it on the radar as it comes in many times. We've done it before in the big money grind races. Don't be too afraid to use full wet weather tyres, because certainly the main thing when there is puddles on the track, because my test was 100% completely same track throughout. When there is patches of puddles on the track and you have wet puddles, the full wet weather tyres don't get dragged off by those puddles quite so much. So especially at Le Mans where you're doing 300 kilometers an hour down the Mulsanne straight, wet weather tyres could be quite useful. It's also not a complete disaster if you get caught on a dry track with the wet weather tyres. The difference between full wets and the intermediate tyres for tyre wear wasn't as much as I thought it would be. There is something else which can help with tyre wear, and that is brake balance. If you want to know everything about brake balance in Gran Turismo 7, click on the video right now.